Okay? We're just focused on clearing as much as we possibly can, getting through this map as quickly as we can. You got to be wary of things like Kosis and Omniphobia can just randomly come out of nowhere and one-shot you with some of their abilities. It can be kind of a struggle sometimes, right? But thankfully, Inspired Learning, we're up to like 13 stacks right now and doing pretty well, so things are going okay. These are just giga-juiced crazy maps with more monsters than you've probably ever seen in them, and we're just killing as many as we possibly can. We're trying to get those Delirium rewards. Those are going to be the guaranteed rewards that we get that give us all them. Okay, yeah, and Omniphobia just randomly one-shot me. So I've had a decent amount of people asking me how I'm doing my farming strategy, how I got to where I'm at, where I made all my currency, and all that kind of good stuff. So essentially what this video is going to be when people come into my chat over at Twitch or here on YouTube and they say, hey, Big Ducks, how'd you do such and such and such? This is the video I'm going to link you to. So here in the stash, as you can see, my net worth is roughly around 100 divines right now. That is probably like 40, 45 divine in just like raw currency and fragments and such. My character is probably 30, 35 divine, and then I have some like other gear that I'm prepping for another character and some other small stuff like that. So total net worth is about 100 divine at the moment. And how did I get here? So I've used pretty similar strategies in the video that I made when I said my plans for league start. So if you missed that video, unfortunate, but I have changed them slightly because the new league has changed some stuff with the Atlas and I wanted to try out a couple different things, but there have been some pretty sizable changes to how I would have done stuff previously. So when it comes to the strategy that I used, if you want to copy the blueprint that I used to go from 0 currency all the way up to about 100 divine after roughly 1 week, you're going to need to choose a character that can actually do what it is that I'm doing. And the main thing you're going to need is a character that can die not that often, meaning either something that is relatively tanky, but it also needs to do pretty good clear. So single target damage isn't that important here. We're not going to be doing any like uber bossing or bossing or anything like that. It's mainly just being able to clear maps. Lightning Arrow Deadeye was a really good choice. Something like Corrupting Fever Champion would also be pretty good for something like this. You just need something relatively tanky, relatively good at clearing maps. Another thing to keep in mind is that we will be doing Delirious maps, so you are going to need a character that does have 100% avoidance of all elemental ailments. There's a lot of alt ailments that happen in Delirium, and those can be extremely dangerous when they hit you, and it is significantly easier to survive when you have all of those. Now your character should also have positive chaos res. Mine doesn't because I'm lazy. Don't be like me, do what I say and not what I do. You also want like a good amount of evasion. Evasion is one of the best defensive layers for things like Delirium big juice maps. Armor would also be helpful, but on a character like Lightning Arrow, you don't really need it. But the big thing is just doing enough damage to be able to handle the maps. So make sure that you choose your character well, because it's going to be something that needs the scale up. Like I said, the two options that I suggest for you are either going to be Lightning Arrow Deadeye if you are willing to put in a lot of money into it, or Corrupting Fever Champion would probably be slightly easier, but maybe not as good of clear. Now just be warned here, you are going to have to invest into your character. You heard me say that my character's got like 20, 30, 40 divines worth of gear on it, right? You are going to have to do the same thing to get to the point where I'm at, where I can farm 4 or 5 divines an hour if I want to, right? As long as everything's going okay. If you want to be able to do that, you're going to need to invest into your character enough money to make it powerful enough to do that. I know that it feels really bad to, you know, throw like 20, 30, 40 divine. It's like, this is all my money. I'm spending it all on this character and I want to play something else, right? You gotta invest the money into your character first so that it's strong enough to be able to farm faster later. You can't get caught up on like, well, you know, I don't want to spend too much more money on my character because then I'm eating into my profits and stuff. No, just make your character strong. So now that you've gotten the idea of your character, let's talk about the first strategy. So this first tree is going to be an Alch and Go tree. What that means is that you're just going to be gathering a certain set of maps. You're going to be alching them and you're just going to be going. There's no Scarabs, there's no Sextants, there's no anything extra. You alch the map. If you can run the mods, you go, right? Very simple, very easy for most people to understand. Doesn't require you to get any kind of like crazy knowledge or Scarabs or buy anything off the, you know, the trade website or anything like that. You can set up this tree and just go. This can probably net you maybe a divine or two an hour, maybe a little bit more if you're really, really pushing. So you could just do this forever if you really wanted to. However, we probably want to scale a little bit further than this. So this strategy is a stream of consciousness strategy. What this means is that your maps cannot be modified by fragments other than divine vessels. This means things like Scarabs and such. You cannot use those here. However, your maps have 50% more base chance to contain extra content. Now, what is extra content? It's that giant list of things you see there at the bottom. It's basically like anything that's on the Atlas, right? And the main things that we're going to be focusing on is going to be Legion, we're going to be focusing on Expedition, we're going to be focusing on short Deliriums, which I'll talk about in a moment, and Altars. And the way that we're going to be using these on the Atlas is we're trying to get these to just pop up in our maps on their own as frequently as we can. So to be able to do that, we are taking Stream of Consciousness, gives us a 50% more base chance, right? And then we're going to be disabling anything that we don't care about to give us even more base chance. On top of that, we're going to be taking nodes on the tree that give us, like, say, +4 chance to contain an expedition encounter. Same thing with things with like Legion here, with Delirium, all that kind of good stuff, right? We're just focusing on nodes on the tree that give us more of that kind of content. Talking briefly about how you interact with each of these mechanics, Legion is really just to get a whole bunch of monsters in your map, clear them out for all of the rewards. They drop a lot of like just raw divines and chaos and stacked decks. Divination cards, all kinds of good stuff like that drops from Legion. You're really not super focused on the Legion emblems themselves. They are worth a little bit of money right now. It's actually not too bad, but you're mainly just focused on getting mobs into your map to kill and getting those rewards and chests and things that drop a lot of items. And when it comes to Expedition, the main reason that I added Expedition back in is because of Extreme Archaeology, or as I like to call it, the Oppenheimer node. So the whole idea here is that this gives you one giant explosion and no more of the place in the little things all over the place. The way that you use this, you take this node, you put the explosion right in the middle where it hits the most things, you check the little thing at the bottom right that says, hey, am I gonna be, able to actually kill this? Check all the mods. If it's something you can do, you just go kill everything and you're done. You can, move it around a little bit if you get like some kind of damage that you're immune to or something like that. Thankfully, as lightning arrow, you do 3 different kinds of damage. So if you're like immune to one of them, doesn't really matter too much. That's pretty much it for Expedition. We have taken these nodes up here that make it so that Tujin as well as Danig are more common. It's because these are just the 2 that actually make you money. Beyond that, it's logbooks. Those are pretty much the only things we really care about in there. We just sell the logbooks, sell all of the currency, and that's the main reason to go in Expedition. Now, the next thing on the list is going to be short Delirium. What do I mean by short Delirium? So we only take these couple of nodes that just give us a percentage chance to see Delirium in our maps. What we do with Delirium is if we see this at the beginning, we pop it, we run through the map, get up to 5 rewards, and then cancel it and move on. So we don't worry about trying to force this as far as we possibly can. We don't worry about splinters. We don't worry about any of that kind of stuff. We're just getting 5 rewards and getting out of the Delirium. You can press the little arrows in the bottom right corner of your screen to be able to cancel the Delirium whenever you want. Last thing on the list is going to be altars. Now, we are doing Searing Exarch altars. You can, if you want to, do Eater of World altars, but I do suggest Searing Exarch, mainly because the biggest downside of Searing Exarch altars is the Burning Ground. That's like one of the more dangerous mods, and you can just take the Aberranth God power to completely immune yourself from all of this. Now, I do highly suggest that you take Wrath of the Cosmos. It does make things more difficult, but this is very, very powerful. You really want to take this to be able to make enough money off of this. Now, the things that you should be looking for on this is quantity of items dropped in your maps. Things like small chance to drop like a Chaos, chance to drop like Embers, chance to drop Awakened Sextants. I even had one time where it gave me a chance to drop Annulment Orbs. You're looking for those kinds of things and stacking those kinds of things throughout the map. If you can, you should be rushing towards the boss and killing the boss as quickly as you can, which we'll talk about a little bit when I talk about which map you should be choosing for this strategy, because that is going to disable all of the boss mods, which are typically pretty useless on your altars. And then you can just focus on those ones that just make you get more loot. That's the vast majority of the strategy. There isn't really a lot more to it. It is just simply Alch and go. Now, jumping back into the game here real quickly, the 2 maps that I personally definitely suggest that you use for this strategy are going to be dunes as well as mesa. Now you're going to be taking a bunch of nodes on the tree that give you a pretty high chance to drop a connected map, and that means that you're going to be able to pretty easily bounce back and forth between mesa and dunes. One good thing about mesa is that the boss is going to be directly in the middle of the map. You can just zoom right up, kill him real quickly, and then start doing all the altars and everything else. Makes it so that you can get a lot more effectiveness out of that strategy. The main reason that I suggest these two maps is that they have pretty good layouts, and they do have the new Divination card, which is one of the main things that's actually making me money right now, which is called the Fortunate. This card drops all the time. I have turned in the last couple of days probably 5 sets of this so far. It drops absolutely constantly, and it is only going to drop in outside sunny areas. I know that sounds weird, but Mesa and Dunes are both outside sunny areas. In the high-end strategy, I'm averaging one of these every few maps. So if you want to go to like Cemetery or something else like that, and you want to try to get some like Brothers Gift, Brothers Stash, that kind of thing, by all means, but I farmed an entire league and got like maybe one of those, and this has been dropping for me absolutely constantly. So it's up to you, but I think that Mesa and I think Dunes is going to be a better set of maps. Now, when you are doing the Mesa Dune strategy, you can favorite one of each, like just go like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all the way through here if you like, or if you want to focus on one more than the other, be my guest. As for the map device and everything else, you're just going to be running normal quantity. You're not going to be running any Scarabs. They won't work. Just use your Searing Exarch progress. This is pretty important because it's going to drop you like the Searing Exarch maps, which are worth a decent amount of money. Last time I checked, I don't know what they're worth right now, but I sold them for like 100 chaos each. So just another good little marker that you can get for burning through a whole bunch of maps. All these little things are going to add up, and you need to make sure that you're using every single thing at your disposal. You need to make sure that you're selling those logbooks and the logbook currency. You need to make sure that you're selling all of the items that you get from Legion. Make sure that when you get those incubators from Legion, the good incubators, I just keep a set in here at all times, and I just fill all my items up with these incubators whenever they drop off. So go in and edit your filter to make sure that your incubators are only the ones that you really care about seeing. You have to do it manually because there's another section in the bottom of Filter Blade when it comes to these incubators. So make sure you're doing all of that. Make sure you're getting all of the currency that you can like wring out of those Alch and Go maps, because your whole entire goal of the Alch and Go maps is to make your character strong enough to be able to move into this strategy that I'm currently doing. And that is going to be 80% Delirious juiced maps. Now, this finalized strategy is definitely a higher end one. It's going to take a pretty powerful character. The reason that I'm even able to do it is mainly because of Inspired Learning. Inspired Learning is really powerful for this. You just push through the map really quickly, get as many of these buffs as you can. However, if you have a strong enough character and you think you can move towards this, you will make quite a bit of currency. But let's talk about the strategy itself, and that starts with the Atlas tree. Now, the whole purpose of this Atlas tree is that we're trying to push as many units as we possibly can into the map. We're trying to get as many layers of Delirium as we possibly can. And the way that we do that is with some of the same suspects that we had from before. That's going to be things like Legion. However, now we're going to be adding in Harbingers, we're going to be adding in Breach, we're going to be adding in Abyss, and of course we do have Altars as well. Now, there are a few Delirium nodes that are actually pretty decent, and those are going to be the ones that are up here, but we're mainly using Delirium Orbs. However, this Imagined Pursuits node, which gives you +1 to count on map completion, is actually pretty good. It's just going to let you get a final little extra level at the end when you finish off the boss if you want to finish him off at the end. If you finish him off early, it's just going to boost you forward a little bit as well, depending on what map you decide to do. Now, there's not really a lot to go over as to why we choose these nodes. In general, it's just pumping as many enemies as we can into the map as possible. That's with getting as many Harbingers as we can, as many Legion mobs as we can, as many breaches as we can. So this is the tree. All of these are linked down in the description, of course, if you want to check these out. However, when we talk about what we should do in game, things get a little bit complicated because I need to talk to you about something called margins. This is probably the most difficult concept to understand for most people and the most important concept for making money on any mapping strategy whatsoever. You need to be aware of your margins and how expensive something is versus how much you're actually making profit-wise from those things that you invest into. Now, a lot of people are going to hear the fact that I'm spending 60 plus chaos every single map that I run and be like, how are you making any money spending 60 chaos every single map? That's how much money that I make in an entire day of playing. Well, the thing about it is that yes, I'm spending 60 chaos on every single map, but I'm coming out of that map with a guaranteed 110 chaos. And that's before any of the extra stuff that drops on the ground. Now, how do I do that? So the idea is that there are a few different ways that you can juice maps. You can roll the map itself, you can run it with Scarabs, you can put different master missions on it, you can choose things on the map device, you can run Eater or Maven or Exarch, you can also use Sextants, you can use these on your Watchstones that you've got here for extra mods. There's all kinds of different things that you can do. So while there are a variety of different ways that you can scale it, some of them are going to be worth it more than others. So this is the set of things that I have personally chosen. When it comes to rolling the map, I'm currently doing 80% Delirious maps. Now you can use whatever Delirium Orb that you want. Typically the Scarab or the Divination card ones are best. These are the two that make the most money. If you do the Scarab one, you're going to have to be okay with selling those Scarabs in massive bulk. If you do the Divination card one, it's not as strict on how often you have to sell. You just kind of gather up stack decks and then sell them whenever you're ready. I do suggest selling them in bulk for Divines. And then when it comes to Scarabs, we're using a very specific set of Scarabs. So we are using Legion Scarabs first off. Now the ideal Scarabs for this are probably polished Legion Scarabs. However, these are significantly more expensive than gilded. And the reason for that is because gilded Legion Scarabs guarantee a general. And one of the nodes that we take is that if there's one general, there's going to be both generals. So if your build can handle killing the generals relatively easily, you can use gildeds perfectly fine. However, for the vast majority of people, I'm going to suggest polished Legion Scarabs because it gives us an additional Legion encounter as well as each Legion contains a Warhorde. The only thing that the gilded one does is it also gives you a general, so not really super useful. Next one we're going to be using is gilded Harbinger Scarabs. The difference between the different Harbinger Scarabs is just the amount of Harbingers that it adds. So obviously, gilded is probably going to be best. Now, should you do winged Scarabs? Probably not. They're insanely expensive, and if you're doing like 100% Delirious Giga Juiced for specific Sextants, yeah, you're going to want winged Scarabs for those because your margins are going to be so insanely high, you need to get more out of them. But here, gilded is going to be more than fine. The next Scarabs that we're going to use are rusted breach Scarabs. Now, the reason that we choose rusted is because we don't care about breach it bosses clasped hands. We don't care about double breach splinters. None of that matters to us. We're just trying to force more mobs into the zone. And all of these only give one additional breach. Now, the next Scarab that we're using is polished abyss Scarabs. The reason we're using polished is because the gilded ones only make it so that they give us an abyssal depths, which is not really great. We don't care about abyssal depths. However, the polished ones give us abysses and areas spawn 50% increased monsters, which the rusted ones do not. So those are going to be the 4 Scarabs that we run. Now, of course, as I told you before, we're running Searing Exarch Altars because of all the reasons I said previously. Just a bunch of good currency that you can get. You can ignore the Burning Ground with just a simple god power. Just get Mafad and you're unaffected by Burning Ground, and it even makes you move faster while you're running around. Now, we are going to be putting Legion on the map device just because it is the most profitable out of what we do have available. And now let's talk about Sextants. So Sextants are going to be one of the more difficult things for me to give you specifics on. There are a lot of very good Sextants, and most of those Sextants are prohibitively expensive. They're also really hard to get in bulk. So in my opinion, you can go and buy specific Sextants if you would like. There are quite a few of them that are pretty popular, such as the one that makes Delirium rewards fill faster, or things that like force certain mobs into your zones, things that make your character stronger. You can buy any of those in bulk if you would like. However, from what I have seen from the prices, in my opinion, it just simply makes more sense to roll your own Sextants and sell whichever good ones pop up when they pop up. So, Delirium rewards fill faster, adding legions, adding breaches, adding abysses, all of these things are very good. However, they're not exactly necessary. Just roll some Sextants on it, make sure that you get ones that add additional units into your maps. As you can see, I rolled random ones, I got Magic Pack Size, I got Legion and Abyss, which is pretty lucky, and then Gloom Shrines, which are just like a little bit of, added effectiveness of my character. Now, speaking quickly on the 80% Delirious note. So you can do 20% Delirious on whatever map that you're running up to 100% Delirious. The problem is that when you get up to 100% Delirious, mobs are taking so little damage that it's really hard to justify. I would say that if you don't have like a Headhunter or an equivalently powerful build to that, you're probably not going to want to do 100% Delirious. 80% is the most that my character can handle. I would say the lowest that you would realistically want to do this strategy though is 60% Delirious. Any lower and all of those extra Scarabs that you're spending are not really going towards profit enough. So that's where I would say probably 60 to 80% is going to be your best bet. So that's talked about pretty much everything there is to do with prepping for the map. Let's actually jump into one. Now, I have no idea how this is going to go. I die quite a bit depending on the mods or anything else that happens, but we are going to roll a map. We're going to put 80% Delirious on it, and then we're going to see if we can get some mods that we can do. I might have to roll this quite a few times. We'll see how long it takes. There's some mods that this build just simply can't do, and some that just make it significantly less fast to go through maps. Man, I had to roll so much there to get one that was decent. I got so many ones that were just like Reflect Ellie and all kinds of other terrible things, but we've got the map now. So this is going to be 72 and 20. It's honestly not great, but it is what it is. We're not too worried about it. 80% Delirious, and we're going to pop this into the map device. We've got our 4 Scarabs. Now, one thing I didn't talk about is that we do have Nico on our Atlas. Now, what we have with Nico is going to be these 2 points right here, packed with energy. This gives us some damage, some movement speed, and some maximum all resist whenever we do find his little nodes here. I jump between a couple different things, but this is the nicest one, I guess you could say, because it's essentially no downside and it's only 2 points to get a bunch of upside. We're doing Searing Exarch Altars, we're doing Legion, we have our Sextants that we already had rolled from before. So let's go ahead and get into this mess of a map. So now, one thing that we have to talk about in here, okay? The performance, like the performance upgrade patch that GGG did very recently has made it so that my computer essentially almost doesn't work in these maps sometimes, to the point where, you know, I freeze constantly, hangups, the screen just like loses everything, and I'm like in this giant endless abyss of nothingness. So I'm gonna do my best here, but you'll see right away what I'm talking about if I get enough stuff going on at once. Now, with this particular build, the main thing that we are looking for is that we are looking to find lots of enemies, lots of rares, so we can start stacking up our inspired learning. Now, these breaches are going to be super dense. You'll see that we've got this little Nico thing here to give us some movement speed. But the whole idea here is that you are just trying to pump as many monsters as you possibly can in this map, and you can see I'm lagging pretty bad, right? But these are very dangerous maps, very high-end maps. You really do need a very strong character to be able to handle them most of the time. And you kind of have to keep moving here, right? We're just focused on clearing as much as we possibly can, getting through this map as quickly as we can. You got to be wary of things like Kosis and Omniphobia can just randomly come out of nowhere and one-shot you with some of their abilities. It can be kind of a struggle sometimes, right? But thankfully, Inspired Learning, we're up to like 13 stacks right now and doing pretty well, so things are going okay. Now, typically it's when these legions pop or I get like an abyss at the same time and everything is all coming together is when stuff kind of falls apart. All right, there's our little friend here. But you kind of get the idea, right? Is that we just come into these maps, we push as many monsters as we possibly can, do our best to clear everything, kill as many mobs in the legions as we can, hope that we don't get screwed over by arch nemesis mods, among other things. But I am level 95 on this character, but I do die a decent amount. It is very tough to survive sometimes in some of these maps. It just simply is not going to be realistic to stay alive, if I'm going to be honest with you. Like, stopping to do things like that can just randomly kill you. Here, let me see if I can click this. Okay. But as you can see, these are just giga-juiced crazy maps with more monsters than you've probably ever seen in them, and we're just killing as many as we possibly can. And the main reason is to get that meter down at the bottom left that you can kind of see a little bit of. I know my camera is covering it currently. But we're trying to get those Delirium rewards. Those are going to be the guaranteed rewards that we get that give us all them. Okay, yeah, and Omniphobia just randomly one-shot me. You guys get the idea. That is what those maps devolve into. It's basically just a bajillion mobs at any given time. Omniphobia jumped from off screen and killed me. I didn't even know that he was there, but that's the idea. You are just trying to giga push through those maps, get everything all cleared, kill all of the enemies, get as many Delirium rewards as you possibly can. I'm gonna finish the map real quick, and then I'll show you what happens afterwards and show you some of the loot. But this gets us, ooh, he actually almost hit me there. That gets us our 13 completion. Now, the whole idea here is that this is with the map cleared, so we're going to go back and we're going to look at all of the loot that we have available to us as we run around here. Now, there's a bunch of different Legion stuff that we have to open here, but you'll see. A ton of uniques, a ton of simulacrum splinters, a ton of stacked decks, divination cards, all kinds of good stuff, right? Now, of course, this is going to be typically front loaded. Most of the stacked decks are going to be all up in the front here. But when you pick up all these stacked decks, on average, it ends up at about 50 when we're talking about 4 sets of rewards here. It's about 50 stacked decks every time. The reason I say about 50, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 80. I've seen as high as 110 before, but it is kind of just random. It does even out at about 50, maybe 55, and that's where most of the guaranteed profit comes from. So just because of those stacked decks, they sell right now for around 2 chaos each, or about like 92 for a divine. All that considered, we make base profit just off of stacked decks or other things. If you're doing like things like Scarabs and such like that, easily we're making double what we invested into the map. And that is going to be it for the video. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you can try out some of these different strategies and make your way from essentially nothing all the way up into having at least 100 divine to your name. And if not, at least maybe you learned something, or it was entertaining seeing all of those crazy amount of mobs packed into one map. So remember, boys, if you enjoy this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and stay safe out there in Rayclass. And I'll see you guys in the next video.